Across America, the 2022 data indicates there are approximately 18.3 million children who live without a father in the home, comprising about 1 in 4 U.S. children. About 80% of single-parent homes are led by single mothers. Children from single-parent families are twice as likely to suffer from mental health and behavioral problems as those living with married parents. In one study, 70% of youth in the state-operated facilities were from single-parent homes. Children with an actively engaged father perform much better in school. Now, some data shows that there are 33% less likely to repeat a class and 43% more likely to get A's in school. Hi, and welcome to Mid-South Viewpoint here on Bot Radio Network. I'm Byron Tyler. Today, the subject of fatherlessness in our city. We've got two guests here to talk about it, and I hope you will stay tuned for the next half hour on the show as we talk about a very important topic. Kendall Qualls is the executive faculty in residence at Crown College School of Business and founder-president of the nonprofit foundation TakeCharge. He is former candidate for the Republican nomination for governor of Minnesota in the 2022 election cycle. He and his wife, Sheila, have been happily married for 37 years. They have 5 children together. He was also a mentor at the Minnesota Adult Teen Challenge, also serves on the Board of Hope Farm School. It's a school for at-risk boys from Minneapolis. And also in the studio with us today is Pastor Terrell Monger. He's a senior pastor at One Accord Ministries here in our city. He's known as the Visionary Mogul. We're going to have to find out what that's all about. He's also a relationship coach. All of our relationships need some coaching, right? And he's authored books like Born Not to Know, The Art of Strategic Conversation, What Kind of Crazy Are You? And That's Not My Fight. So, gentlemen, welcome to Bot Radio Network here today. Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks for having us, Byron.
The first question, I guess, is how did you guys get connected? I mean, what was the initial circumstances that you met?
Yeah, let me kick that off. So we started an organization in Minneapolis called TakeCharge, and the subtitle is Take Charge of Your Life, Your Family, Your Community. You don't need permission in order to take charge of any of those things in your life. And as Americans, we never waited for permission from government or anything. We got serious problems in our community, and we can do things the old-fashioned way, rooted in Scripture and rooting in the American tradition of taking charge.
Yeah.
And so we were looking to expand our network within TakeCharge. We had some great traction in Minneapolis, and our first outreach was to Pastor Monger here in Memphis. And I tell people it's a Mark Twain story, Mark Twain's novel, current day novel. 2 cities on the Mississippi River, Minneapolis and Memphis.
Wow, I love that. So, Pastor, give us your initial impression when you first met Kendall.
Yeah, when I first had the conversation with Kendall, it was like everything he was saying was what I'd already been working on and thinking about for years, but his vision and his goal kind of brought it to a pinpoint. As much as I worked with youth and try to work with relationship and work with schools, the missing element of the father in the home, as prevalent as it was, I overlooked it. And just thinking about all of the statistics showing the effects of not having a father in the home, it made my work a little easier. So I was excited to work with Mr. Kendall because he helped me pinpoint some things that I've been spinning my wheels on for years. Yeah. Now my efforts are a little more orchestrated with that piece.
Yeah, if I can expand on that a bit, because what we did when we started, this was the height of systemic racism, and the country is irredeemable and all that, coming out of the riots of Minneapolis. And the issue that I would try to address, yes, we do have racist people in this country, but this country is not systemically racist. The country that my parents grew up in during the Jim Crow South is not the same country today. They would have loved to have grown up in the America I grew up in. The problem we have is that in my lifetime, we have gone from 80% two-parent families in the black community to 80% fatherless homes without one national initiative to reverse the trend.
Wow.
And that's what we're starting that with TakeCharge.
Before we jump in deeper into this conversation, just stop right now and maybe share some of your backstories, where you grew up, what was family life in your home. Let's start with you, Pastor.
Yeah, my life was a challenging one. My father was a criminal himself. He was a drug dealer. He went to jail when I was maybe 3 or 4. My first meeting with him was on the other side of a glass, picking up a phone, talking to him. That's how I met my father. And my mother couldn't handle the pressure of that, and she became a severe alcoholic, and it led to her having a nervous breakdown and being placed into a mental institution. And the services that are available today weren't really available, so we lived from house to house with family, with friends, and things like that. But I was blessed with a sister that cared about me, and at the time when things got really, really bad, she introduced me to this magical book called the Sears Catalog. And we used to sit there at night and dream of the type of life we wanted, the type of house we would live in, the type of clothes we would wear. So my default in time of trouble was to imagine a better life for myself. And it sustained me. It helped my decisions. I had 5 brothers, and they didn't have that same imagination I had, and all of them ended up being criminals themselves. 2 in jail, 1 killed, 1 got into an altercation with police and has brain damage right now. So it was a difficult situation. And a lot of people ask me, how did I survive that? And it was my imagination. People hear my story and say it's sad. But for me, I say every hero has a backstory.
Yes.
Batman lost his parents right in front of him. Superman, whole planet blew up. And I figure if your planet hadn't blown up, you stand a chance. And so it fueled me to be a better person. And I got a glimpse of, at the time, Heathcliff Huxtable was a great father to his son. And they gave me an image of what I wanted to be. And it helped govern my life and make better decisions. And because of that one show, I made the decisions of a father that I wish I had and a father that I wanted to be. And so as much as that was in my mind, that's why I was almost magical when I met Mr. Kendall, because that's what saved me. Even though the father wasn't in the home, the image of what a father should be. And for those people who don't have that imagination, they need a father present to navigate through the troubled waters that they face.
Yes.
And I think that'll make a better society. So that's my background.
Oh, I love that story, Pastor. I really love that. And before we jump over to you, Kendall, let me just, if you don't mind me sharing briefly, I resonate some of what you're saying, especially as a child with an imagination. Mm-hmm. I too was in a single parent home. Father had mental illness, in and out of mental hospitals, parents divorced, and we were bouncing around from different family members for a while too. So it was a very emotional, traumatic, childhood. But my mom was wise, and she knew that I needed male figures, in my life. So she got me involved with the Cub Scouts, then to go into the Boy Scouts, and men who really care to take time, to spend with you. Now, Christ in the scriptures was not a factor. That was not in our life. Mm-hmm. Maybe church once a year to go to Easter, services. But there was some strong men leaders that I saw. And like you're saying, I respected that. And I thought, I want to have a different home. So what I say that to say it is possible.
Right.
Even in the adverse environment and the trauma that so many homes face today in our city, it's possible to have a different life and make different strides that better you. If you're in those circumstances, you're not confined to those circumstances.
That's exactly right. What we focus on for people to understand, there's some things outside of your control, and there's some things in your control.
Yeah.
Take charge of those things you can control.
Because we want to hear your story.
Yeah. So, when my father came back from Vietnam, my parents divorced, and we moved from Fort Campbell, Kentucky, home of the 101st Airborne, to Harlem, New York in the late 60s, early 70s. So my mom and us 5 kids moved to Harlem. We moved where our grandparents lived. So I lived through that from 1st to 5th grade. And then my father got me and my younger brother to live with him because my mom couldn't handle all 5 kids by herself. Our older siblings were getting absorbed into the street culture of the city, getting in trouble. And so I lived from 5th grade on with my father, and he lived at that point in time, he lived in a trailer park in Oklahoma. So I tell people, look, in this country, I've been called ghetto kid, trailer trash, and a lot worse. But here's what I know, is where you start in life is not where you have to stay in life. Yeah. There is a pathway out. And for me, I just thought I wanted to get as much education as I could and accumulate wealth to distance the poverty.
Yeah.
And so I served on active duty for 5 years. I was an artillery officer. And when I got my first job outside of the military was in Dallas, Texas, and someone invited me to church. I didn't want to go. I didn't think it was relevant. I believed in God, but I didn't think the church was relevant. I went, and it changed my life. It was a good Bible teaching church.
Yeah.
And I understood. He was talking about, Pastor was talking about spiritual warfare and how Satan wants to divide families, because if he divides family, he's dividing generations.
Right.
And I said, well, that just happened in my life. And at that point, I was there for a year and a half. I got baptized there at that church, and it turned my life around. I'm the only one in my family, my siblings, that have not had multiple marriages, and our kids are, it's just a blessing of God. So we've been on this journey now for about 30 years.
Oh, what a great story there, Kendall. I love that. Well, broken families, fatherlessness, and the government stepping in to take over traditional parenting duties, like instilling their values, are an increasingly common fact of life here in America. The question I have for you guys is, has the church been sleeping? I mean, how do we get where we are?
Well, I can talk a lot about that. I grew up in church. My uncle was my pastor. That's the church I got saved in. And there was a lot of inconsistency in that church. And so the church lost me. I felt like I knew God, but I felt like the people didn't represent God the way I thought God would be. And my opinion was they were playing with God. And so I went on with my career. I moved to Atlanta, and fortunately ended up in a strong Bible teaching, evangelism-focused church. And I started doing street events, 3-on-3 basketball tournaments, video game tournaments, poetry in the park. And I was really doing and trying to create a positive environment for families to be in. And it turned into something bigger. They started writing articles about me, about this young guy who was doing street ministry. And I started seeing the effects of what sincerity could do to people when you're seriously doing it for real. Yeah. And from that point, churches started bringing me in to teach their leadership training and teaching their outreach and youth team. And then what I saw was what the church that I had seen up to that point, what they were missing was an authentic desire to please God. Not just gathering, not to be entertained, but that authentic desire to do what's pleasing in the eyes of God. And I think if that authentic desire is not there, it paints a misrepresentation of what being in church is. Look, I heard it said, being in a church doesn't make you any more Christian than being in a garage makes you a car, right? And so I think the focus on pleasing God first is what the first thing that kind of watered down what the church could be.
Yes. The National Center for Educational Statistics concluded that 10% of students living with both their parents have ever repeated a grade, compared to 20% living in stepfather families, 17% in stepmother families, 18% in mother-only families, 16% in father-only families, and 21% living with neither parent. How bad has society corrupted the design or the definition of marriage that God intended originally?
Yeah, you know what, and it's to answer both this question and your previous one about has the church been asleep on this issue, especially on marriage. Answer is yes, yes, and yes. Have been asleep. There's been this knee-jerk reaction, again, coming out of the George Floyd riots. Hey, we have to embrace our racist background and social justice, and a lot of churches were conflicting themselves. And I know what at our local church we're going like, no, you don't need the Bible plus something or Jesus plus something else. It's all in there. It's all there. Yeah. How about just do it? The fact that for 50 years we allowed the black community to go from 80% two-parent families to 80% fatherless homes, and no red flag has gone up.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you, I've looked at this data all across the country, and some of these major cities, it's nearly 90%. Children born with no father in the home.
Yeah.
And the problem is it's spreading in the Hispanic community and it's spreading in the white community, where the black community was 50 years ago.
Yeah.
The progressive left does not want to bring back the patriarchy. We don't know that the culture doesn't care They rather have it like it is than go back to Father's knows best.
Wow. Since you've been here in Memphis and you've been visiting with, I know, many people and having in-home meetings, I've heard about some of those. What are some of your personal observations of fatherlessness right here in our city?
Well, it's pervasive. I can see it walking downtown with a lot of the kids, how they're dressed, how they communicate, and all that, everything. And then obviously the violence. Yeah, the young officer that you guys just lost another officer here locally, and it just breaks your heart. And then realizing the young kid that did the shooting, I mean, barely a teenager.
Yeah.
It is, and that wasn't his first offense either.
Yeah.
I mean, multiple issues. So the problem is that this is universal, not just here in Memphis. It's across the country.
Right.
But when you look in Shelby County, when I looked at the data, 85% of the births in the Black community, 85% are to fatherless homes. Mm. That's not sustainable for a culture.
No.
And again, who's raising the red? The church should be raising the red flag.
Yeah.
It is. We need a day of prayer and basically a day of fasting. Mm. How do we rededicate ourselves to what God intended? But not only that, we didn't used to live this way.
No. Yeah. Let me also inject this into the conversation. When we talk about fatherlessness in our homes, it doesn't mean the father has to be totally absent. We can have fathers living in the home and be absent from the family because their priorities are all wrong, and they're not loving their wives like they should. They're not teaching their children like they should. So, I mean, it can go.
There is a spectrum.
Yes.
So you have the complete no fatherless. You have the every other weekend father. I mean that, and then you have the passive dad in the home, which is terrible. But right now, as our culture becomes more confusing about gender,
yeah.
about the importance of education,
yeah.
what it means to be an American, our history as a country,
yeah.
our fellow human beings, the father in the church should be the anchor for all those things. And right now, it's weak.
I know you talked about your organization, but maybe some other models or ideas that you're bringing to the table to address this issue. What are some resources you've been pulling from? Are there places in I know Minneapolis in Minnesota.
Yeah.
You're seeing examples where your organization is working, but maybe across the states and other examples, maybe you see models or things that you would think it would be good to implement here.
Yeah, so I share this with Terrell quite a bit, and some of the pastors here locally. I said, look, we're not bringing anything new. This is like a football coach taking over a habitual losing team. We're going back to the basics.
Yeah.
The models that work, what's been taught in the Bible, Scripture. Yeah. What are some of the models? It's all the things our grandparents have told us what to do and not to do. Guess what? Those things work.
Yeah.
How about let's implement them? We're going back to the basics. This is a 3-point stance. This is how you tackle, and this is how you hold the ball when you run. This is it, because that formula works. And so what we've seen is within the Twin Cities, we have over 60 volunteers in the Black community. I didn't know any of them. But you know what? They heard the message, they heard the truth, and we have the largest video library in the country of Black Americans that denounce critical race theory, denounce Black Lives Matter, and call for a need to get back to faith, family, and education.
Yeah.
Think about the PragerU video library. It's that, and it's about getting back to basics, and it's spreading across the country. We got chapters now that we're going to be forming in Detroit, Michigan, the Hispanic community of the Twin Cities. So it's not just in the Black community, Hispanic community. Yeah. And I have an interview today with someone for Mississippi.
Pastor Terrell, what are some steps that you've taken so far?
Yeah, one of the things I've learned to be a little more comfortable with frustrating people. And the reason I say that is, as to what Mr. Kendall just said, the Bible still works if we use it for application and not just memorization. If you look at the world right now, and if what we know as the enemy has came in like a flood, what does the Bible tell us? It said the Lord will lift up a standard against him. What do we do in times of we lower the standard? Yeah. Oh, you can't make an A? Let me lower the grade scale.
Yeah.
You can't get a job? Let me put a program in there that allows you to get a job. Yeah. And so instead of lifting the standard, we're lowering the standard. So what I believe and what I'm trying to do is everything that I do, I'm trying to instill a greater sense of accountability. Let's not change the word to fix us. To fit us. Let's change ourselves to fit the word. And so learning how to have those conversations, difficult as that may be, I'm learning to be okay with those uncomfortable conversations and say, are we living up to what we say we believe?
Yes.
And that's leaders, that's members, that's everybody. Of course, I want to learn how to craft arguments in such a way that I'm more interested in not losing friends than I am winning arguments. But at the same time, I think a good friend will have these conversations consistently until the standard is lifted. And again, I'll say, even when the Bible says the Lord will lift up a standard against him, the standard is the floor, not the ceiling.
Yeah.
The standard is the let's start here while we still reach for that, not let's lower this so we can be okay with that.
Yes. Oh, he's preaching now, Kendall.
Well, and this is analogous to even talking about your friends that not want to be around you. Look, at the end of the day, a coach makes his team stronger and better. Your friends, you should be making them strong. It is iron sharpens iron.
Yes.
Right.
If you want to be a butter knife, I don't know if this relationship's going to work.
I love that's good. Well, so how well is your message being received by those you've met with so far?
Well, you know what? There are some that are rooted in the world. That's not my team.
Yeah, no.
There is a large percentage. We do polling nationally in the black community, and here's that. What most people be shocked. About 60% of black Americans say that the federal government should be incentivizing two-parent families instead of incentivizing single parenthood. Yeah. The vast majority of black Americans believe that school choice should happen. There's no national organization that supports those two initiatives. When you think about it, not the NAACP, I'm naming them and I don't care. Because at the end of the day, when I say I don't care, I'm not saying that flippant.
No.
What I'm saying is, either you line up with the things that God lines up with, or you're opposed. It's that simple.
Yes.
And so if you don't want to line up with the two-parent family, the traditional home, then I have an issue with that.
Yes.
And so does God.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so there are organizations that don't support those initiatives, Better Schools for Kids as the school choice, and moving the government away from incentivizing what we know now from all the data that you spouted here about what happens to these kids. We know this.
Yeah.
We have outcome. We have the science behind it.
This isn't church science. This
is real. This is real.
Yeah, exactly.
And we got prisons full of kids that have grown up in this situation, and we have victims of crimes because we have government policies incentivizing the wrong behaviors.
Yes. So who are you looking for to join your efforts? We've got listeners right now. So, Pastor Terrell, who are we looking for to join?
Well, the great thing is, over the years, I've gained some pretty good relationships around the city, and because I've done a lot for a bunch of different organizations in the means of helping them or volunteering in certain things. The biggest things is the people of influence. The people who have a voice, whether they be a pastor, whether they lead nonprofit organization, as Mr. Kendall said, we're looking to train the trainers. We're not trying to work from the bottom up. We're trying to get those people who have the influence to not just repeat what we say, but hear and understand the message so you can articulate it to the group of people that that you've gained favor with or that follow you. Yes. The biggest goal is to, back in the day, every TV show, every commercial had a jingle that you remember to this day. You still remember the Brady Bunch theme. You still remember the Wrigley's gum commercial. You remember all of that. Why is it that people don't understand that the repetition of entertainment is changing the human condition. The music they're playing, the shows they're watching. You're shaping America with these jingles, with these repetitious conversation and TV shows and music.
Yeah.
If we could reach people who are in those positions of leadership, we can turn this around quicker, because what we don't want to do is every time we enlighten someone, the repetition of stupidity dims them back down.
Right.
But to actually start a culture change from those who get it and understand it and take that information to their communities.
Yeah, if I can add into that too, some of the people that join us as volunteers, our volunteers that we have, many of them, none of them are compensated. I mean, they want to help change the culture. So we feel so the people that are listening, if you want to be a part of this, you can go to TakeChargeUS.com. And you're connected with that. You're connected with locally here in Memphis and everything else, and across the country. But basically, if you want to send information, your contact information, there's a contact info you can send. Again, that's TakeChargeUS.com. And we provide a voice to the people that don't feel like they have a voice. We provide a platform to them. Legacy media, censors us. They don't represent their values. I mean, we were poor, we were black, we didn't have. But my mother understood there was right and wrong. It doesn't matter what these people have. You don't try to take from them.
Right.
You work hard to get do well in school. You're respectful to teachers and you're respectful to police officers. Yeah. And then those that are looking to, hey, where do I? There's so many organizations that have gone woke. Where do I put my money? Where can I give that's going to have kingdom impact? Yeah. And I would have them consider us as well.
Yeah. When you guys look at the statistics, when you see the forces of darkness that are working so powerfully and strategically against your efforts, do you fear that the problem is so bad that it's irreversible?
Go ahead.
Absolutely not, especially if you are a believer of what is written in the Bible. All you see is unsurmountable issues such as a Pharaoh, such as a group of Pharisees. You see total systems set up against God's word. And God's word is so powerful, either he will change them or make them turn on each other. So belief and confidence is the biggest thing. And you can't be a person of faith and decide you're going to give up. I believe, and me and Kendall just had this conversation, the Bible says the eyes of the Lord searches to and fro, looking for someone to show himself strong in. So it's not that God is up scratching his head saying, how am I going to fix that problem down there? No, I'm looking for some people that believe enough for me to give them the answer that they'll dedicate their lives to bringing it to pass. And I believe Kendall is one of those people. Great. He's a very intelligent man, but I believe he heard from God. Yes. And he believed he can do what God says. And so God said, okay, my eyes are searching. There's one. Yeah. So look, is there another? Like we're in the service, is there another? Will another come? But I believe it's people believing enough that God is capable, that they open up their heart and mind to execute the plan and strategy that he gives them with confidence.
What gives me confidence that we're going to win this. I can't tell you the date and time, but we're going to win it. When you look at the history of our country, from what George Washington did, and I mean literally, this is not to get hokey. I mean, if you know the history of our country, we should not exist. Yeah, we should not exist. No. For what happened through the Civil War, we should not exist. And you know what? God uses people that are believed in Him that are nobodies. I like to call myself Gideon. Right? I'm the last of my tribe. I'm the last of my family in that tribe. But He uses us to do godly things as we remain humble and obviously give Him the glory. But I mean, this is doable. It is absolutely doable.
Okay. I know our friends are going to want to connect with you, get in contact with you. What's that web address again?
Yeah, it's TakeCharge. TakeChargeUS.com. TakeChargeUS.com.
And locally, now I know you're back and forth, right?
Yeah, I'm here once a month. But yeah, Terrell can give his direct contact information.
Yeah, actually, through TakeCharge, I do have an email address with TakeCharge, Terrell@TakeChargeUS.com. And locally, Mr-Provider.com has a lot of the initiatives that we have with men, including the stage play we're doing this June 14th. Yeah. All of the events we do is not only just inspiration, but it's information for the next steps. And so I've really dedicated myself to the work of Take Charge because I believe in it so much. And whatever relationships, whatever talent, whatever ability God has allowed me to gain over these few years, I am putting all my eggs in this basket because I believe in it that much.
And Byron, if I can, this coming up Father's Day. So what's significant about this? So this is the second year we sponsored the Fatherhood Impact Award. The first year we did it, we had 4 churches in Minneapolis that participated. We awarded 3 churches. So we provided the pastors of these churches personalized certificates for 3 men in their church that met the godly criteria of the Man Code book. And we provided a monetary gift card. And we took out a half-page ad in the local paper with their pictures in it and said that the United States has the highest percentage of children that grow up without a father than any country in the world. Yeah. And we need men like this locally and nationally. So that was the first year. Second year, we went from 1 city to 5 cities. We're now recognizing 48 men across 5 different cities in the country and 5 different states.
Yeah, right.
And, it's grown and within just 1 year, significantly. And we hope that this spreads across the country because we need to start showing what good looks like.
Yes.
It's one thing to complain and worry about and talk about the statistics of fatherless homes. What about the men that are doing it right?
Yes.
And we need to elevate them.
Let's applaud them.
That's right.
Yeah.
And Terrell can talk about what the billboard signs that we have around Memphis.
What we're going to do is have to have you guys come back. And let me just say this. This is an open invitation. Anytime you want to hop on these microphones and give us updates, we're going to have to do that, okay?
Yeah.
Our time has slipped on the program. But thank you for what you're allowing Christ to do in and through you, just being servants and getting the message out. Really, it's His message, and you're just being instruments to proclaim it. It's been a real pleasure to have you on Mid-South Viewpoint today.
Thank you, Byron.
Thank you.
Well, friends, that's all the time we have on this edition of Mid-South Viewpoint here on Bot Radio Network. Thanks for listening. I'm Byron Tyler, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.